Good morning, everyone. This is Maysha with Islamic Breathing. And yes, I'm laughing already because, well, I'm always laughing, but I'm having a great time already because look who's with me. Hey, Maggie.
Hello. Hello, everyone. So
We're
excited to be
already,
here again.
yeah, we're already having technical stuff. Like, yeah, so, I already said so in a live this morning, but I want to remind you all that if we are coming to you via StreamYard. So if you don't have it enabled in your settings on Facebook, I won't be able to see you put things in the chat and I won't know you're there. So do enable StreamYard in your Facebook settings so I know you're there, because certainly if you're watching, we want to know and we want to see your comments and get back with you. But now that we've got all that out of the way, all that housekeeping stuff out of the way, because we don't want to ignore anyone, Maggie and I just want to jump right into the topic. And I want to let you know this, Maggie. We picked the right topic. You know you're in a vibrational alignment. I said this in my live this morning. You know you're in vibrational alignment when you're having coffee and your messenger goes off, ding, and it's Elizabeth Kitt, co-founder of the network, honorary, and she says, "Hey, really wanted to catch the live this morning with you and Maggie, but not going to be able to, so I'm going to catch the replay. But I want to do," and then she tells me what her topic is going to be for October because she wants to piggyback off of what we're doing. And it's like,
Wow.
yeah. And I'm like, Elizabeth, you could say you want to talk about standing on your head, and I would say, okay, because I know it's going to be fun. And she said, okay, we'll do that topic next. She told me how funny I am, but yeah. So yeah, Elizabeth Kipp is going to talk about the 3 levels of consciousness, is what she's going to talk about in October. But I mean, if you think about it, we're going to talk about the 6 aspects of your true self. So that's, I mean, you're just flowing right into then the 3 levels of consciousness. I was like, she's like, so yeah, we got Elizabeth Kipp's attention, and blessing, and she's already yeah, she was already talking about it this morning. And so, yeah, but unfortunately, she couldn't be with us live. She wanted to be, though. She wanted to be here live. So I wanted to let you know that that Elizabeth is she's a fan.
Well, thank you, Maysha, and thank you, Elizabeth. Incidentally, I actually saw a photo on Facebook yesterday. It was one with you and a lady and a gentleman, and something along the lines of, I get help with people around, blah blah blah, and it was really good. So I think I
Yeah,
loved it or something. So I think the vibrations are kind of
yeah,
working, with each other. Really, really nice.
right.
But every time I think of this topic, connecting with the true self or the 6 aspects of the self, there's so many other parallel topics that runs across and around and everywhere. So it's really amazing, and thank you for the feedback as well, Elizabeth, because we all feed off each other, so it's good.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
it tells us
And
what people want to hear as well. So that's really good.
right. Your workshop was amazing, and wow! I wish you could just do it again so we could get more people there. I wish more people had been there because it was just so. But of course, it needs to be like the size it was, because then we all can interact at the level we did. So I want more people there, but I want it like it was, because it's that catch-22 thing. Hello, glad to have you. Put over in chat there so we see who you are. So it's so glad to have you this morning. But when you got to that part in the workshop,
Mm-hmm.
all of the things that you put into that, the six aspects of your true self, I have seen put together before. I've talked about it and heard about, et cetera, and like where you tied it together, which I don't want to give away because I know you're going to get to, but the whole thing together, I had not ever heard anybody put all of it together quite the way you did, and I was like, wow, that's impressive, because you did tie it all together so well, because you brought in pieces and parts that other people had not connected into it. And so I'm like, yeah, there's one aspect of it that that I had heard before that I was like, I'm so glad she brought that in. But then you brought in so many other parts that I'm like, I'd never heard anybody else tie all of those in with it too. So whenever we were talking about what topics to do, and I just threw it out there as one of them. And when you latched onto it, I'm like, yes. So what do we mean when we say the 6 aspects of your true self? What are we talking about?
Thank you, Maysha. So, when we talk about the true self, it's ourselves devoid of all the conditioning that we've inherited, is ourselves in its truest state, where the emotions we vibrate are good emotions, and it feels like us basically. So, and most of the time when we talk about the true self, we also talk about body, mind, and spirit, or we talk about our emotional self, mental self, physical and spiritual self. And people will describe the true self in so many ways, but in its simplest form, I feel that the true self is the physical self, which is, the aspect of us that we can touch, plus the aspect of us that we can't touch coming together, basically. And there are so many different aspects of looking at this. And so, Maysha was referring to a workshop that I did a few weeks ago, maybe 2, 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And the title of that workshop was Connecting, Developing Your True Self. And then
Mhm.
I think 6 months back in March, we did another one, which was about connecting with the true self.
Mhm.
And so this was a follow up onto that. And over the course of the time between the first and the second masterclass, I was thinking about, because it can be kind of, I don't necessarily want to use the word nebulous, but it can seem that way because we're talking more about the aspect of us that is not touchable and not very tangible. Then for a lot of people, I find um, I have to find different ways of describing it in a way that they can connect with. So, for instance, Misha, if you remember, after describing the 6 aspects of the self, the true self, which we're going to go into in a few moments, I then kind of brought it down to say, so I would like you to pick maybe 2 or 3 of these aspects that you feel more drawn to,
Mhm.
but in actual reality, we connected to all of these selves, because, well, it's all of this that makes us who we are.
Right.
Um, and you can look at it in different levels. So, for instance, I know you said Elizabeth is going to talk about 3 levels of consciousness,
Mhm.
and who knows, she might talk about the 3D, the 4D, the 5D, or she may talk about different levels of consciousness. But all of these come together because we are looking at how the physical and the non-physical, which we may call consciousness, or the spiritual aspect of us, coming together seamlessly in such a way that our existence here is less heavy. It's
Mhm.
lighter, and then we live the happy life that we all said we wanted to experience, basically. So that is a bit of a context, and let's get into it, shall we?
Yeah, I know you did a great job of laying out that so much of this is some people may consider it just academic, and so it's like some people may consider it just heady. Some people may consider it it's not real to them. It's words, but it's like how do I take it and apply it to real life? You know, but the way you presented it, you make it very much about real life, and so you do take it out of from being nebulous to practical. But at the
Mm.
same time, do acknowledge the fact that there is that wondrous aspect to it as well. And I do agree that our true self is this very physical and spiritual, the marriage of the two. So that's my perspective of it. But of course, whatever perspective someone has is the
Mhm.
right perspective because it is relevant to each person. So, all right. Well, then, what is aspect one?
So aspect one is So one thing is, before we go into the six, I want you to look at this from the perspective of, we're going to go up, we're going to go down, we're going to go sideways, so the left and the right, and then we're going to go back and then forward. So those are the six kind of dimensions that we're going to go.
Yeah.
And hopefully this will help bring the description to life for you. So,
Right.
aspect one is going up, and we're going to describe that as connecting with our higher self, connecting with what most people will call source, consciousness, God, and also connecting with the spiritual realm per se. That is, for most people, that is how they describe the spiritual realm. And you will find people connecting this to, if they're very angelic, then they may refer it, the way that is the aspect of them that connects to the angelic realm. If they connect to guides and higher beings, then that will be the realm they use. um, if they're galactic, for instance, then it's still the same.
Hmm.
So it's the higher self and what we call the direct spirit consciousness. So yeah.
I was fascinated at all the things you put in that. When you started with that in the workshop, I was like, wow. Because that was like, when I heard you talking, I was like, okay, that was like three of them I thought she was going to do all in one. But then as I thought about it a little bit, I'm like, well, that's because we each relate to we each relate to all of those things from where we're at. And so for
Yeah.
some, yes, it is the angelic. For some, it is a more scientific, and some people consider the galactic a scientific way.
Yeah.
For others, it is a more practical. And so they may not consider either of those two, but yet at the same
Mhm.
time, there is something other that they will. And so we can't limit it to, okay, it's the angelic, or it's the universe, or it's God. But they will use, well, it's energy. So the
Exactly.
and so then as you moved on to two, because my mind is like, where is she going to go next? Because she already used what I would consider. And then when I saw what you were doing, I'm like, oh wow, I see what she's doing. Because the way I would have done it, well, I would have, of course, nobody's gonna be surprised at this. I would have had like 20 aspects, because I would have taken all. But then I saw what you were doing, because you were grouping together all the different ways, because that's what we do. There's some of us who are very metaphysical and talk about it from this standpoint, but at the same time, I can sit down and talk with someone who is coming from the more scientific, or from
Mhm.
whichever angle, and I hear the correlation. I don't see it
Yeah.
as separate. I see it as the
Yeah.
same. Whereas
Yeah.
they may not, and I'm
Yeah.
fine with that if they don't, because we don't have to agree. Because to me, we are in agreement, but it's fine if they don't see it that way.
Yeah.
So that's really what you're addressing, is the fact that um, we each come from where we come from,
Mhm.
and how we see our true self can be any of those ways. But
Yes.
in actuality, it's still it still fits in the same aspect. Yeah,
It
and
does.
so
It
yeah,
does.
and I loved that you did that, because as you went on, I'm like, ooh, so what else is she going to lump together? What else is she going to lump together? And I loved how you did that, because that was the part, because all of the aspects you brought out, I'm like, I don't think you surprised me with any of them, but I was just like, for each one, I'm like, where's she going next with it? What's she putting together next? So I loved that part of it. So yeah, I loved how you put all of those together, and brought out the fact that we
Mhm.
we just see the same things, but see them differently,
Yeah.
and call them different things, and relate to them differently, and
Yeah.
are willing to discuss them and acknowledge them differently, and that's okay. That's
Yes.
perfectly okay, because it's I'm not anyone to say that you're right or wrong, because it's not right or wrong. It is
Right.
perspective, and what you do relate to. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not. Yeah. So
Yeah. And it's also about the soul's journey as well. So,
it
and some
is.
people may say the soul, and a lot of this is also partly based on the knowledge I gather as I hold space for other people to access the Akashic records. I see
Sure.
what they resonate with, what they don't resonate with, and all of that. And you may even call that kind of direction going up your inner self, and that's fine. So
Yeah.
it's that big intangible aspect of you that exists and helps you.
Yeah, because when you did going up, I mean, higher self to me, because higher self to me is so integrated into me that
Yes.
going up to me is not. I'm like, when you almost like the first thing you said was higher self, and I'm like, what? And so I'm like, okay, yes, I go, but and then you did universe, source, and then angels and all that, and I'm like, yeah, 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 okay, and then you went on to talk about all the others, and I'm like, well, yeah, that's going up too. And then I saw what you were doing, and I'm like, oh, so she's at, and I loved it. I loved how you did. But then, like I said, I was like, okay, so when's she going to group into 2 and 3? And so yeah, go on.
Cool. And so now that we've gone up, let's go down. And let's talk about what I have now called the human self. That is our 3D self, is the aspect that we can touch, we can see, we can feel, is the kind of strong aspect that is here. But then also with this human self is an aspect of us that in a way we could also term as spiritual in a way. So you will come across people who, like, for them, they feel the best when they are in nature and connecting with the trees and connecting with the sea and the elements and everything. And so the earth, in terms of, our planet here, and the physical human self, is what I'm describing as the second aspect of the true self. But
Mm-hmm.
that second aspect also has two aspects. And so
Mm-hmm.
you find that the earth, beneath the earth, where people will call the core of the earth or the center of the earth, there is an aspect of the earth that is not as kind of physical and as tangible as the earth itself. And some people call it the crystalline grid. And in a way, that is also consciousness. And so, as we develop ourselves, as we connect more and more with our true selves, what we tend to find is, say, when we're in meditative states and stuff, we may hit the crystalline grid, which is below the earth. Um, but again, that is another aspect of the self.
Right, and you connected that back to being also source or
It's also source and it's also
right,
consciousness.
right. And
Mm.
so then you did that as above, as below,
No,
and
yes.
right, which I had. Of course, I studied Catholicism, and I've studied and so you're going to get to. I know where you're going to go later, and so I had made that connection, but when you did that, I had not. I had just not thought of it from the point of our physical self and being connected to earth and our connection to all the things about the earth, and then going on down to essentially grounding
Then
and
going
connecting
down.
beneath, right, and putting those two, well, I guess dividing that aspect into sub aspects, I guess. And so when
Yeah.
you did that, I'm like, ooh, I like that, because it is, especially for those who are into the more multidimensional aspects and connect with the fairies. And
Hmm.
those people are definitely going to relate to it from this standpoint. And
Hmm.
so when you did that, I was like, oh yes, I really like that. But and for those who are very into the crystalline grid and meditation, as you said, and so when you did that, I found that just I thought, oh, that's a brilliant way of doing it. So I don't know if you came up with all this on your own or what, but I was listening and I was like, oh yeah, that is a great grouping of to
Hmm.
do, because for me that would have been two. I would have done it, thought of it in two separate ways too. And
Hmm.
so I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, already now I'm up to 8 and she's only done 2. So we can see which one of us is definitely able to to be more concise.
But yeah, but as part of that crystalline grid, you may come across people who are awakening to their true selves as
Hmm.
well. And they may refer to themselves as so I won't necessarily say star seeds, but they're part of that collective. Because some of the star seeds are more galactic, so they may refer it up. But there are some star seeds who refer it down into the crystalline grid to the older civilizations like Atlantis, and um, there are so many. Do you want to remind me of some of them? Well,
Well, the Lemurians are associated with under,
water,
and
so
so right,
so yeah, so
right,
again, it's a form of spirit, is a form of our consciousness, and we kind of refer to it down. So it's so above, so below, and we have now completed two of the aspects of the self.
right. And something that I was given was that in the 3D we were clay based, and now the reason crystals are so important to us is we are raising in vibration, and the
Mm,
crystals are supporting that raising in vibration, and that is why we have been crystals have been becoming for a while now such
yes,
an important aspect of metaphysical practice. And that is why in our meditations and in our grounding we are talking about the crystalline grid, is because the earth is using now the crystals, and we are developing that crystalline aspect instead of the clay aspect. It's a lighter aspect to allow us to function with the higher vibration. And so
absolutely,
which
yes.
is connecting up. And so when you did that, I was like, oh yeah, that's good, that's good. I mean, that connects it all, because it is how we are part of the earth. I mean, it's very earthy, but it is
Mhm.
how we are connected up as well.
How
And so
we shifting and changing consciousness to become lighter beings, and
right,
so the earth is becoming kind of awakening and becoming a higher vibrational place,
right,
and because of that, the crystalline grade below the earth is facilitating that. But what's happening is our 3D dense bodies are not able to house very high vibrational energies.
right, right.
Develop more and more into our higher soul level consciousness. And so our
Yes.
bodies are turning from the physical 3D self into the higher vibrational crystalline self. So
Right.
it's all
Absolutely.
very connected, yes.
Yes, yeah. So it was all, yeah. When you put it together, I was just listening. I'm like, yeah, that is just, she did that so well. So yes, very good explanation. Love it, love it.
Thank you.
Okay.
So let's now kind of imagine we're doing this. So
Yes, I know, I know.
and let's start with the left. So the left is an aspect of ourselves, and I'm going to call that the feminine self. But it's regardless of whether you present yourself now as male or female. It's got
Right.
nothing to do with that. So
Sure.
whether you're male or female, you do have a feminine aspect of yourself and a masculine aspect of yourself. But the feminine aspect of ourselves is our creative self. So it's the one that has more of the innate abilities, the intuitive self. It's got is the creative source as well. And so the ideas that come to us, all of that comes from our feminine selves. And the more we connect more and more with our feminine selves, the more we develop the connection with our true self. So we use our intuition to be able to connect with people. And Maysha would remember that when we did a workshop, we did a number of intuitive connection exercises.
Yes. Yeah.
But the feminine self, or the feminine aspect of ourselves, helps us with that. It helps us with nurturing. It helps us with developing a lot of the kind of the receptiveness of our humanity.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so that's the feminine aspect of us.
Right.
Um,
On the left, which
the aspect
yeah,
of it. Yeah.
yeah.
And
Okay.
then if I was to kind of, oh yeah, it depends on how this is
I
showing.
know, it depends on it. Yeah, and
Okay, so I
it
will,
doesn't have a mirroring.
I
It
will,
doesn't have the mirroring
I
setting,
would,
so
yes,
we're
I would do the left and right because of the confusing people. Anyway, so if you look at your right hand side and you were to stretch your hand there, then that would be your masculine self, right? The masculine self is the aspect of you that is more active. So it's your active source. So if your feminine self was your creative source, then once you've created this idea, when you've thought about the idea, you can see it and you get really excited, then it's about time for you to bring that into being. And the reason why you bring that into being is because we are physical beings. And one of the most important things as physical beings is that we need to take action in order to create and manifest what we want. and experience true amazing lives, as spiritual beings having an amazing physical experience. So the masculine aspect of us allows us to take the action, and then
Yeah.
when we take the action based on the creative source that we have kind of conjured up, then we then bring what we want to create into being and then experience it as part of our physical experience.
Yeah, if we're too much in the feminine, we are yeah, I can't help but laugh. We are create, 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 create here, but we don't necessarily ever get to the really creating it, really creating it, really creating it, because that is the more that's the more tangible aspect, which is the more masculine. That is the more practical. Okay, these are the steps we have to take. The more doing. So it is
Yeah,
the more the feminine is the more being, and the masculine is the more doing, and it takes both, and that is why we have to have balance, and that is
absolutely.
so it's not that one is better than the other, and you really
No,
have to have both.
yes, they do need to coexist for you to be balanced and experience life the way you really want to.
Right,
Yeah.
right, yeah. And it's very easy to get, especially when you get excited about things. You know, when you're an excitable person, it's very easy to get over in the excitability part. And then, and if you have, hello, good to have you. Put over in the chat who you are so we can say hi to you. And then especially if you have any type of energy issues, health problems, or any kind of constraint of any kind, anything that makes you feel or perceive yourself as limited,
Hmm.
can then the divine feminine is an easy place to get locked into and feel comfortable with, and the divine masculine more difficult for you because of your perceived limitations.
Hmm.
So that's how those two can get out of balance really easily, and happens a lot of times with creative
Yeah.
types, et cetera,
Hmm.
because it's easier. One will be easier for you to be in than the other, or it's more acceptable to be a doer if you're in a certain aspect of society, or if you are a certain gender even, than it is for you to be the creative type. And so you have that mental limitation or that societal limitation, and so
Yeah.
you really want to be more creative, but that's not okay because you've got to do. And so
Yeah.
that's how we can get those out of balance. And I'm just trying to bring it into real world, because those are really easy to get out of balance. And the truth is, to be a really happy, rounded person, you need both, because we
Hmm.
really do have both in us. And if we're not using both of them, we're not really fulfilled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't feel as happy, we don't feel as
Right.
connected to who we really are, because we
Right.
will know that there's more to us and we're not able to kind of
Right.
experience with that. Yeah.
Right.
So it's a balance between the doing and the being, is the balance between the ideas, the creation, and actually just putting one foot in front of the other. And whenever I talk about the masculine and the action taken, I say just you don't have to. Sometimes one of the fears that we have when it comes to taking action is the fact that we feel we need to take a big action. And especially people who are really good with their feminine self are able to kind of conjure up this beautiful grand idea, and then that scares them. and
Yeah.
so and so they don't quite know how to bring it into kind of physical manifestation. And don't get me wrong, a lot of that can still be brought into manifestation through the feminine self, is the visualization and all of that. But if you balance that way, or if you are lopsided that way, then you know that already. You know, you the whole the moment you think about something is created. And we
Right.
also need to know that creation is complete. Everything we can think about, the only reason why we can think
Exist.
about that
Yeah.
is because it's already there. And so we need to then take that step towards bringing it into our being, into our experience. And
Right.
so the action and the doing is important. And all you need to do is to put one foot in front of the other.
Right.
Think about it, take that step. You know, who else could be doing something that, could be doing something that is close to you? Could you just go and have a chat with them? And after that chat, could you take another action towards asking someone for something that you need? And that's all it takes, just those little steps. You would be amazed that as soon as you put yourself in the action mode, people will start coming to you anyway to enable you to bring this creative idea into being. So it's great.
because because of being in the vibrational alignment, and so
Yeah.
they're attracted to you. And as Sherry is always saying, what is that one thing you need to do every day? If you can just think of it as that one thing every day, if you can just think of it that way, then it's not as scary and it's manageable. And yeah, so
Yeah.
beautiful way of, yeah. So, but
Yes.
it
And
can
if
be very
you're
scary.
doing, sorry, and if you're
No,
doing, because we do have some of us who are also doing,
right.
and they feel guilty every time they stop.
Well, and then there's the other part too, because I'm dichotomous anyway, which we know. There is the doing, Maysha,
Hmm.
because she exists. She
Hmm.
exists big time. But then there's also the divine feminine Maysha who just keeps coming up with stuff and coming up with stuff and creating,
Yeah.
creating,
Yeah.
and can't get into the doing with some of them because it's too big, or
Yeah. The
eludes
two are
me.
not exactly in sync. Yes.
Right. Or it's or I've got blockages from something that's happened that I've got to
Yeah.
clear or whatever. And so
Yeah.
it's very easy to be both. It's very easy
Yeah.
to be out of balance both ways, because
Yeah.
I'm somebody who is out of balance both ways. And that is that, and that can be confusing because you're like, okay, wait a second, usually I'm this way, but no, now I'm this way. And but that is the truth of how we are. We can be dichotomous in our imbalances, and I'm both. I am a doer, and overdo here, and then over here it's like I can't, this lump of stuff I can't get going on. And so and that is a frustrating thing too, because then you feel like you're two different people, and you don't know which self you're dealing with, and you don't know how to balance those two different people you are,
Yeah.
because then you got
Yeah.
two different people in you to
Yeah.
balance. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's a very frustrating thing. And
It is.
so
It
yeah.
is. One thing, when I find myself in that kind of doing mode, the most interesting thing to notice um, is that you may be doing that which isn't necessarily important, but you're doing it so it feels like you are busy.
Yes.
And that is why kind of the true creation that the feminine self is pushing
Yes.
in your direction is not being done, because we
Yes.
feel that so long as we get busy it's okay, but actually we're not being busy with the most important things that we need to take the action towards. And
Right.
again, that is why we see them as blocks, and once those blocks are cleared, then we take the action on the most important things first. Otherwise,
Right.
yes, we'll be doing, but we are keeping busy, but not necessarily doing the most important things. And
And
then
that, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
and when we do, it's really important for us to be able to be, because that is when the results of the action starts to kick in. And
Yeah.
sometimes, and I learned this the hard way, and so these days I particularly say, when I take time out to be, that's it, and I actually decide that I'm not going to do anything. And I've tested myself for maybe 3 years now, and every time I stop and say I'm taking a vacation, that is when the most interesting offers and opportunities come my way.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Because
to
I have,
challenge you on
yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah, because I was such a doer, and now
Well,
yeah, so
yeah,
it's
with
very
our
interesting.
doing
And I'm still
sometimes.
learning and
Yeah,
refining, definitely.
right. Sometimes with our doing, it is that we are ourselves self-sabotaging ourselves by overdoing, by and we don't realize it. When I say
Mm.
self-sabotaging, it's not, because of fears or what it limiting
All of
beliefs,
those things,
right?
yeah,
And then other times it's doing because we have let society put roles on us
yeah,
that are
takes away our
over
experience. to do the
Yeah,
important things.
right.
Yeah.
They are overpowering our lives. And I've done both. I've been guilty of both. I've let society put on me roles that, okay, yes, they were good roles, they weren't wrong roles, but they weren't the roles that fulfilled my life. And so then that just led to more issues with when it came time to to get into who I wanted to be, because then I tanked my health more, etc. So they just, when we do that part, then we just further complicate the other. So it's a vicious cycle kind of thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
but I did think it's interesting what you said about when we decide that no, that's it, I'm going to take the time for being. You know
Hmm.
what? It is like if you the way I believe, it's like the universe is like, so I'm just going to see if you mean that, Yeah, let's just see if you mean that,
Yeah.
And I don't like to say the universe tests us. I know some people like to say that. I don't see it
Mm.
as test. I
No.
see it as um, I see it as helping us develop resolve, helping us make sure that, okay, this is what you say you want to do. Are you really in alignment with that? Are you really committed to it? Are you really thinking that? Because it makes you stop and think. It makes you realize what you're doing. It makes you think it through. Are you recognizing what you're doing? Because our pattern is to jump on that. Well, oh, it came, I better do it. And so it's not like the universe is testing you. It's like, are you realizing you've wanted to be a new way, you wanted to be, and the only way you can be is if you make space to be.
Yeah.
So are you going to make space to be? It's
Yeah.
not you're being tested, it's just, are you going to make the space to do what you said you wanted to do, and so yeah, I don't feel like it's I don't feel like it's really
No.
test.
It's,
Yeah.
it's, it's more opportunity for you to be solid in your
Yes,
decision.
solid, yeah,
It's
I like
more
that.
opportunities. And as we say, habits get formed over 30 days. And I say to a lot of my clients, when you say no 3 times, people who don't get it will eventually get it, all of that. And so the opportunity, when you have decided that you want to practice being a bit more, then there will be more opportunities coming your way to give you the chance to practice and make you solid in your decision.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Go on.
Okay, so we've done the so above, so below. We've done the masculine, feminine, and then imagine we're now going to look at looking forward and then looking backwards. So that's the other direction that we're going to be looking at now. So let's start with the looking back, and I've called that the ancestral and the past self. And the ancestral and the past self is the aspect of us that A is connected to. So it's kind of generational in a way. So generational from the perspective of our parents, generational from the perspective of our cultures, and anything that has accumulated before us, um,
Mhm.
and how a lot of that impacts us, because a lot of this gets passed down into our DNAs, and that is
Mhm.
part of who we become, who we are. It's the
Right.
reason why you will find generations of locksmiths, and they will say we've been here for since 18 wherever, or 200,000 years, and
200,000 years. Yeah.
in the generations for a
Mhm.
reason. It's not because they train people. Yes, of course they do train people, because if this is your family business, you probably be trained, or you grow up around it, so you probably like it. But
Mhm.
people actually come with DNA sources, ancestral DNA sources that's got that information. And some of it is not good for us, and some of it is good for us. And most of the time, tapping and connecting with our ancestral self allows us the opportunity to know ourselves deeper. Most of the people who get drawn into the ancestral self are also people who are sometimes meant to clear some of the stuff within the ancestral lineages that don't necessarily serve them, whether this is from their mother's side or their father's side. Again, when we talk about mother's side and father's side, part of that could also rest in our feminine self and our masculine self. But that's another conversation. Let's just keep this to this ancestral side. And so when you connect it to the ancestral self and you really know yourself more deeply, you'll be able to bring forward some of the good stuff within your ancestral lineage into
Yes.
this present lifetime that allows you to be, that allows you to know yourself and experience life the way you want to and create the impact. Because most people who are drawn to this kind of work, let's face it, are people who feel that there is more to them than meets the eye and they want to create change and impact for themselves and others.
Right.
The other side of still looking at the ancestral and the past is the past self. And
Yes.
the past self is the evolution. So most of you will know that I do Akashic Records work, and the past lives kind of area comes into this aspect of going back, because the soul as you are now, the spirit that you are now, has had various evolutions over time, and maybe across different timelines, across different dimensions and all of that. And there are things in terms of gifts and opportunities and also things that are not necessarily good that comes from this aspect of us. And the more we learn about that, the more we get rid of that which we don't need anymore for the true self, the better our chances of reconciling and connecting more deeply. It also has our gifts. So, and the more we can download good stuff from our past lives into the present, the more powerful we are in terms of living the best lives.
Right. All good stuff. And of course, Elizabeth Kipp does ancestral clearing to help with chronic pain, to help with trauma, um, all of those things. And so, a lot of what you're talking about is taking, whether it be ancestral programming, things that they've told us this is what you're going to do. Because yes,
Yeah.
sometimes you want to be a locksmith because you've been around it and you love it, and sometimes you're a locksmith because they told you you were going to be, or you just felt like you had to be, like right, like generations of doctors or lawyers
Yeah.
or policemen or whatever. And then one day rises up and says, I'm not going to be one. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
you know
Put the
and
outside straight
yeah,
back. Yeah.
right. And so that's you know th- we don't realize that or the one that says, okay, I'm moving away from the family farm, or
Yeah.
I'm breaking away, and you all are very country oriented, and I'm moving to the city.
Yeah.
Or you all drive great big cars, and I'm going to just have a bicycle. Or I mean, there are all sorts of
Eco-friendly or
right, right. I mean, but we don't realize it is that those things are ancestral too. I mean, so for those that are like, okay, they just talked about past life stuff. I don't believe that. Well, we're also talking about very real world,
yeah.
that is ancestral, that is passed down, that you don't realize, because those are patterns that are locked into your family, that you have you've adopted as,
Yeah.
this is the way we are. This is,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
We don't go to college. We don't go to, my family. It was, we don't spend money like that on vacations. Whenever I started going on cruises and things like that, my dad decided I must be rich, and I'm like, no, I'm not.
I want
I
to
just,
experience life.
yeah, I want to experience life. And it's, well, why would you go there? Well, why did you go to Detroit? But well, I wanted to go, he had his reason, and that was fine. If he wanted to go to Arkansas to fish a trout stream, that was fine.
Yeah.
But why, you can't take your guitar there, baby, and they don't do bluegrass music there. They don't do country music there. And I'm like, well, I'm not going for that, but that didn't fit in with his perception. That wasn't my lineage. That wasn't, well, no, it's not. It's who I am, and so without getting into, which of course I do believe in the past lives and all of that, but there is a very, very practical way of looking at it,
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
and another way of looking at even this generational thing is also looking at, people over a certain age. So you say people 50 plus, have different generational kind of
Absolutely.
imprints compared to those younger, maybe up to 30 plus, and then compared to the younger generations. And everyone has their own kind of part of collective stuff that is imprinted into them. And people have different roles to play to keep the good, and sometimes to also perpetuate what doesn't necessarily serve us. And then there are those who are here to break some of the patterns that don't serve us as well. So yeah,
And
definitely.
proof that this has always been an issue. Proof that it's always been an issue is when you look back at sorry about that. Early generations. I mean, generations. Like Socrates, and I'm talking way back, early history, and you read where they're talking about those young people. Those young people aren't doing. And that's every generation has that where they're the young people aren't doing what we want them to do. And that's because they're clearing what our expectations of them are because it is time for them to move on and have their own, so they're clearing that. But every, I just love, I can remember hearing my mom and then the generation before talking about how the world is just, things are not right in the world because the young people, and then, but their grandparents were saying the same thing about them. And I'm like, listen to you all. There's nothing wrong with the world. It's just your view and your view and your view are different, and it's going to change. And because that is and of course the word evolution was not okay to use then either, but that is the progression. Let's say the natural progression. That is how it is supposed to progress. That is, but that is very much a part of things. But for those who are more esoterical and that type of thing, definitely, for those of us who believe that we've lived before, that we've had past lives, definitely those things get into our energetic DNA, and that becomes an issue too. And so Akashic Record experts, readers, etc., and past life regression people, and ancestral clearing people, even, they help with all of that too. And those things really do heal. Those things really do heal. I know it has healed a trauma in my own family that has made my health so much better and better, and has made me so much better and stronger. And this morning I was looking in the mirror and I'm like, so many things that you would have been afraid of and that would have been just automatic fears for you, they're not now. And it goes directly back to those things being cleared that were related to that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's very important that people understand the healing that can be done from dealing with ancestral. Yeah. And welcome, glad to have you. If you'd like, please say hello in the chat so we know who you are, and if you have a question, please let us know. Glad to have you. Yeah. Okay, Maggie, go ahead.
And so you go, so connecting with the past, the ancestral selves, it's all about seeing what doesn't serve you anymore, getting rid of that, and also kind of re-downloading what works for you, and maybe some of the things that you said you come here and do, and the good things that has happened, as part of your lineage, you're bringing it into the now, so it can serve you and serve others. And then there is the future self. So that's the one that we're looking forward with. And the future self is when we are able to connect with the past, remove what doesn't serve us, and bring what we want to kind of bring to the bigger scale into the present. It enables us to create the future self, or to connect with the future self in a way that allows us to also have the vision to create something bigger. And so the future self, although it's about the self, is also generational, because it's the impact that we create individually for ourselves and in relation to others. Because with everything, there are others who are also connecting with their true selves, and they come together to form the future. So your future self is also generational in terms of the impact you create with others as well as yourself.
Yeah, which then a few generations later they're going to be clearing some of that, but they're not going to clear all of it, or they're going to clear some of it to make space for some of the other that is really good stuff
Yeah.
to be brought forward, because
Cool.
sometimes the
Yeah.
good is overshadowed by some stuff that needs to be cleared out, because there's some good from my ancestral that
Oh
has
yeah.
been brought forward because
Yeah.
room was made for it, space was made for it
Yeah.
once the stuff that needed cleared out was cleared out.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
so it's not necessarily saying that all of your lineage is bad stuff you need to get rid of. So sometimes it's moving some stuff over and out of the way so that the really good stuff can come forward too. And that's what we're doing when we are projecting into the future. We're doing the same thing, and our generations that follow us are going to have that. They're going to have that back forward thing going on too, and they're going to be like, okay, we're going to keep that, and yeah, we'll keep that part, but we got to clear that out of the way so we can bring that forward. So it is all, but you've created where not everyone does. There are a lot of people that will do this analogy, which I do want you to get to. They'll do that, but they don't do the whole all the way around multidimensional. I mean, you've got to, I envision Leonardo's man. That's the drawing of Leonardo's man, and the circle all the way around. The way
Yeah.
you do the all the aspects of self fits with Leonardo's drawing. Instead of just crossing ourselves, which does fit.
Mm.
Yours fits with the Leonardo's drawing of with all the circles going around man in every way, because you really are talking all the dimensions. You're going every direction. And that's what I loved about what you did. It's like, okay, she took, and by the way you grouped everything, you made it every dimension, and that's what I loved about how you grouped it.
Thank you. And in the middle of this all is still the you, the true you. And it's important that you notice that the true you is made up of all the other six selves. So the higher self, the human self, the higher self below, which is a crystalline grid, is made up of your masculine, feminine selves. It's made up of your past and your future. The most important thing is the you in the present, though. So the idea or the reason why you want to connect with your true self is to enable you have an amazing present lifetime. So it's not about the past, it's not about the future, it's not about up, it's not about down. It's about focusing on the present. And all of this is about
Right.
making sure that the present is what you want to experience and the impact you create for yourself and for others as well. And I've created this diagram, and I'm more than happy to share, Maysha, if anyone wants to for me to share. So happy to share that somewhere, maybe in the video or wherever else you want to share it.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Mm.
um the one thing that I've found that I loved about the whole visual of up, down, both ways, and around is what's at the very center of it: the heart space. The heart knows the story. The heart
Yeah,
knows the story. The heart is where our intuition, our heart mind, where all of that is at. So if we listen to the heart, if we live from the heart, and then do so grounded, balanced, centered, all these things, hold everything out, and have all this, and live from the heart, then all of that, it all works together. And we do have that balanced, harmonious, beautiful life. And of course, are we ever going to all do that perfectly all the time? No. I mean, it's because life is not static. It's dynamic, and it's not just us. There are other energies around us. So we that's why we have to continually be reevaluating and grounding and centering and clearing our energies, et cetera, to keep ourselves there. And but I love the visualization, and where in the end, in the center, your true self, your
yeah,
heart mind, your intuition, is right here. And so keep all of these things, and listen to here. So,
yeah.
Maggie, to help, because I know you can help people do all of this. So tell us, tell us how you help people do all this, and how people get a hold of you for help doing all of this, and tell us that kind of stuff.
Wonderful, thank you. Well, so a personal growth mentor consultant, but I'm also an Akashic Records Consultant, which means I enable people to um, find information and answers to baffling questions with regards to who they really are and any other aspects of their lives. So I'm available for any conversations. I'm available for kind of personal growth work, as well as helping you access your own Akashic records. Um, Anything to do with your self development at all. I'm more than happy to have a conversation and see if we're a good fit to work together. I also do healing, so I do a lot of remote healing, connecting people to their true selves. And in this way, then aligning and activating the true self within you, so you can align this back into life and into careers and into businesses and anything else that you're doing, into family life, into love lives, and everything. A very simple tool that I normally give after this conversation is for you to practice connecting to the true self on a daily basis or as often as you can. And just like Maysha said, find 5 minutes a day where you bring yourself, your attention to the center of your heart, or the center of your chest. Take some deep breaths and just say to yourself, I am connected to my true self, and see how you feel when you do that after taking a few breaths and getting into what I call your zero field of consciousness. That zero field is the you devoid of anything. So it's your true self, which is connected to all these aspects that we've talked about. And then from there, maybe ask a specific question, and then receive an answer. Ask the question. Maybe normally we think of the question, but when you think of the question, make sure you ask the question to your heart, and the answer you get will really be the answer from your true self. I do
Right.
mentoring programs, I do healing programs, and I do Akashic Records consultations. And I'll be honored to serve you wherever I can.
Yeah. Well, she's amazing. She's amazing. I'm blessed because she's my friend, and I'm, and she's also on the other side of the world from me. So when I'm in the middle of the night and I'm like, Maggie, are you there? But
I may
she is
be there.
amazing. She is amazing. She is absolutely amazing, and at what she does, and certainly I know a valuable resource for people. And so, anything you want to add to the topic? Anything you want to do? Anything?
There is lots of information and resources on my website, which is Maggie Sarfo, same as my name on the screen. So maggiesarfo.com/personal growth. And that's where you find tools and resources about these things. I have tools around, how to connect with your purpose. I do blogs, and actually, this information will be turned into a blog very soon as well. You will have the opportunity to book a 15-minute complimentary session with me, if you have any baffling questions that you need to ask to see if we're a good fit to work together. And, feel free to connect with me wherever you want to connect with me as well, which could be Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram,
Awesome, awesome.
or on YouTube. Yes, so you find me on YouTube as well.
Yes, yeah. I catch you on YouTube a lot. Is where I
Yeah.
catch you a lot. So I yeah,
So
I
our
like that.
YouTube channel is Purpose and Personal Growth. So
Mhm.
that's how
Right.
I came up on YouTube channel.
And we have a little bit of time, so tell people about your tool that you have, because you had it in the book, and it's available too, because it is an amazing tool. Yeah.
Yeah. So Maysha is talking about. Let me see if I can grab the book.
Okay. All right. Because that tool is amazing for all of this. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So you'll see this book, and I'm more than happy to send a link for you to get a copy, a signed copy from me. Um, and the tool is the Create Balance Healing Program, which is a program I was led to create. Is a program that allows you to connect all the aspects of yourself. So again, that's kind of a different way of looking at the self. But we're looking at the physical self, the mental self, the emotional self, and the spiritual self. And
Right.
it allows you to develop your own intuitive ability to self heal. But then I also
Yes.
use the same tool to work with my clients and heal them remotely, whenever they need the support. But
Right.
written it in such a way, because I strongly believe that we all have the ability to self heal. That is how we were
Yes.
originally created to
Yes.
be. But we do sometimes need someone else to hold space and support us if needed. So the whole idea is that this zero field of consciousness, or this true state, or the true self state, is the state where we are devoid of any conditioning and anything that makes us off kilter or off balance. And so the Create Balance Healing Program is created in such a way that you can prepare yourself, come into a good space, and then using a scale from 1 to 10, you can ask yourself, on a scale from 1 to 10, where is my emotional body or my emotional self right now? And then intuitively you will be able to sense the answer and you write it down. And the higher the number, the more work that needs to be done to bring yourself to one. And then from one, we want to go into the zero field of consciousness. And so you ask, you get an answer, you put it down, don't doubt yourself, and then you ask your healing teams, and the higher beings that you connected with, or in your case, depending on what your belief systems are, if you want to say you're just asking yourself to heal you all the way to your zero field of consciousness. Just say that and then sit there. And there is a lot of guidance in the book as well to kind of help you see where you are in the process. And then every now and again, you check in again and see where you are. Maybe you've come from 8 to 4, and then ask the question again, and then see if you can heal yourself down to the zero field. And sometimes you may not quite get to 1 and 0 because of what we sometimes call karmic absolution. So maybe there are some learnings around what is happening for you at the moment, and the timing is not right yet for you to go all the way back to 0, but you will still feel very healed and complete to the state that you are meant to be at that given time. So you do that for your emotional body, your physical body, your spiritual body, and your mental body. And I have so much great feedback from people that I have used the Great Balance Healing Program on. And also for people who do it for themselves as well. And we use it to address, very physical stuff as well. So, for
Yes.
instance, one of my clients was in a state of feeling weak and sometimes fainting in public, going
Hmm.
into panic attacks. And it was to do with her emotional body. And her emotional body was kind of running away from situations, kind of thing. And that was what was causing the physical fainting. And once, because when you're doing that, because you are so in tune with yourself, your true self, so to speak, you will also get information in terms of why you are out of kilter. And
Yes.
so it's also a very good way of connecting with the true self. So yeah, thank you for letting me share that. So yes,
Yes.
available, and you're more than welcome to contact me if you'd like a copy, or indeed if you like a Create Balance Healing as well. It takes 60 minutes for me to do it, and then I give you a call after it's done, and we can discuss what came up to be healed, what's being healed, and any integration information you were giving as a result of that.
Yeah. It's an amazing tool. With all of my own gifts and abilities, I open up the book and I use the tool because the tool, um, when how I say doctors need to go to another doctor, lawyers need to go to other lawyers, etc. Even when you have your own gifts and stuff, other people's gifts help you, and your tool is an amazing tool to focus you and to it. There are things you miss yourself, and your tool is an amazing tool for self healing. Even for those of us who heal, it's an amazing tool for self healing. And so, for people who think, well, I can't do that. Yes, you can. Yes, you can, because the tool walks you through it, and we all have the gifts. We're all healers. We all have the gifts, and your tool walks you through it in a way that everyone can use them. But certainly, I would recommend that they go ahead and work with you as well with it, because they're going to get so much more from it, and then use it on their own. But yeah, get the book, see what it's about, because it does. all these aspects of self that you talked about, so that you can truly embrace those and live your life so that as long as you're breathing, you're truly living in capital letters. Using a tool like that and understanding your aspects of self, that is how we do that. That's why you come here and we talk about these things, is not so we can, get you to believe woo woo or not believe woo woo, or, we're not espousing any, I don't care what way you believe, we can talk the scientific, we can talk, all of those things are fine. The point is, Maggie and I both, and I know this because I know Maggie, what Maggie and I both want is for you to have the most amazing life possible, to live your optimal life, to live the fullest life possible. And we know that by clearing out what doesn't serve you, by making space, by being as well in all aspects of yourself and your life as possible, that's how that happens. And so that's what matters to us, and so that's why we do what we do, because we want you living in big capital letters. Yeah. Right. So, question real quick before we go. When you're here in October, do you think we'll have time to actually do a live together, like in person together?
I hope so. Me
too. I think we should take.
There, so yes.
Yeah, I think we should take the time and do it.
About that with you, actually. But yes.
Yeah. I was thinking we should. Yeah, I was thinking. I think we should take, even if we just did 30 minutes. I think we should get on and do it, because we're going to be talking this stuff anyway. We might as well talk about it all. Great. So. Awesome. So yes, so Maggie and I are going to hang out in person, and we're going to do it in person with you all too. So I'm so looking forward to that. This is going to be so much fun. Yeah, finally. We're not going to have that big body of water between us. So all right, folks. Thank you, Maggie, so much for your time, for your expertise, for sharing so freely from your heart, and for always supporting the people here and me, and just the world in general, and helping bring the vibration up. And thank you for being you.
Thank you so much, Maysha, for always providing the space, and for your amazing audience. It's always a pleasure to be here and to share a bit of me with you and receive a bit of you as well. So thank you, and it's been a pleasure.
All right, thank you, Maggie. All right, y'all, as long as you're breathing, keep living in great big capital letters. Bye, y'all.